It is a real honour to welcome you to our final panel of this meeting. And we have had such a fantastic conversational journey over the last 2 days, and this is going to also be a really exciting one. So thank you very much to our speakers. It's a pleasure for me to introduce Julia Duwe, who is is a partner at Roland Berger, and she specialises in transformation of established industries and helping them to do that in innovative ways. She's worked in a number of different high-tech companies and also research organisations, including the German Aerospace Centre. So she brings a real wealth of expertise. She also is the author of Ambidexterity, which is, your blog is Ambidexterity, your book is Ambidextrous Leadership, which is now finally in English, which is wonderful. And we'll be able
this is typical female, isn't it? So this is her book. And she shall be proud of it.
Yeah, but I wanted to do that later.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will, definitely. I promise. But first, it's you should be introduced before I go.
Okay. We're going to come back to the book. But thank you, Julia, for being with us. And also we have with us Simone Menne, who is one of the top managers in Europe, and that is not a boast in any way. That is exactly what she is. She's got a host of non-executive board member roles, and she has been CFO for large companies like Lufthansa and Boehringer Ingelheim, and really pioneered things there with their the establishment of their digital labs, which, as somebody whose partner worked at Boehringer Ingelheim for a number of years, the legacy is very much alive and kicking, and has been very transformative. So we are really delighted to welcome you. Thank you very, very much. So our topic for this final session is gendered innovation in multinational corporations. And I thought it would be just good to set the scene by asking the two of you if you wouldn't mind sharing your insights as to why gendered research and gendered innovation is so important in a corporation or corporate setting. Julia, would you be happy to go first?
Yes, I'd love to. Actually, that was part of my business during the last couple of years when I worked for companies in the mechanical engineering business. I worked for 2 different companies in the smart factory, mechanical engineering context, industry 4.0 context. And I was always head of innovation teams. And I was very interested in how innovation works in established companies, especially when you have machines and components for machines. These are very traditional and hardware-oriented products. And then we came in with the teams to develop digital products and components that are part of the whole system. So that was interesting now, because what we found out that digital innovation, digital development in established companies is something completely new. And how do you do that now? One of the success factors, as you call it, was you need mixed teams. And you need not only established teams, but you need people with different experience. Young people, old people, female, male, national, local, international people. And they bring in very different perspectives to the game. And what digital innovation is all about is bringing something new to the world. So you do not really know what's happening in the end. You do not really know how exactly the result must look like. And this is why you need people who are very creative. And when it comes to gendered innovation, I talk more about gendered innovation than about gendered research, because that was part of my business during the last couple of years. I experienced that the female perspective is completely different than the male perspective, because we always asked for also a social perspective, and also how does the user work with our solution? How does the user work with the product in the end? So we focus very much on the people side, the people perspective, and also female colleagues have a systems perspective, while male colleagues sometimes are very technical with the technical detail. This is now cliches, I know, and it might be different in different situations, but if you mix the perspectives, that's the key to innovation. If you mix them and if you have collaboration between different people with different backgrounds, then you have the key to innovation. And I would stop here now, and I can dive deeper into that because I'm very enthusiastic about the topic. I was right in the middle of that during the last years.
Brilliant, thank you.
I could only underscore that. Diversity is the key for many things, and when you look at German automotive, for example, very much engineer-centric. The danger is that you create cars for men, and you don't think about the female, like kids, like bicycles, like shopping, and very often it's thinking fast cars with big noises, and that's the problem. I really am a little bit scared about the German automotive industry, because I think they are very good in optimizing, and they do innovation in making the engine better or making the engine electric, but not thinking mobility for family. Yeah, and therefore you need diversity. And same thing, we were just thinking about different research and different innovation for different countries and different gender. And we heard about that regarding health. So of course, if you only think young male, you produce wrong drugs for female or for Asian people. And we have these examples, if you think artificial intelligence with algorithm from white male, young white male, you forget older people, you forget female, and we had cases where obviously face recognition did not work. So you need diversity in all aspects, and yes, creativity comes from diverse teams, because then you get something new. If a homogeneous team just thinks alike, then nothing new will appear. And actually, I even said gender is not sufficient, as you rightly say, because when I was in the board of Lufthansa, for example, my male colleagues was quite the same way socialized as I am. So of course it's a little bit the female point of view, but it's a very German, university, same age socialization. And again, also that alone doesn't work.
I need to add something. I'm so happy that you say that right now, because actually currently my both arms are aching. And what I did during the last days, I drove a car. It's a new car and it's quite big. It's too big for me. I mean, I'm not that tall, I know that, but still there are cars that work with my size. So I was driving for many hours during the last couple of days, and it was impossible to find position for me. So the car is just not made for me as a female or person. So absolutely, thank you for telling that story, because
direct impact.
Yes, it's direct impact.
So I think what's so fascinating is that the role of the corporate world has such an influence on our lives, doesn't it? And it has such an influence on the ecosystem that is around innovation, which brings so many different partners together. So with the experiences that you've both had, where do you see the role for leadership from the corporate world being, and how does that happen effectively?
Well, the very dangerous part, most of the multinationals are Western Hemisphere. And again, look at the automotive. We have 3 big German car providers, and they needed Tesla to get a wake-up call. Yeah, and again, they are just rebuilding Tesla. What we need, and I'm in a supervisory board of several companies, is that you insist that you have hiring and team building systems where you have a mechanism to mix. And very often, human beings have the tendency to look for harmonized teams. You don't look for somebody who's challenging you. And male, and we just heard it about, there's a study for German family companies, 6.8% female. Huge and successful companies, family-owned, are all male board. So they just don't see or want to have diverse teams. And this is what we should insist, because they will be more successful when they are diverse, and that shall come from the leadership. Every leader shall insist. Unfortunately, a male leader, I'm sorry, but that is studies, and that's not my gut feeling. Male leaders look for the same in small, and not dangerous for me. Yeah? I want to stay as a CEO, so I hire smaller version of myself, but not so bright that this person can become dangerous. Yeah? And we had cases where we had female board members, and they were too often in the media because they are so seldom. I was one of them, and the CEO doesn't like it at all. Yeah? So we need to deconstruct this culture and make clear that it's more successful for the CEO if he, at the moment, very often he is looking for diversity and diverse discussion and critical discussion to come out with a better solution.
And is that something that you encounter as well, the companies you work with?
I think so. What I just thought is it's very, actually it's sometimes very exhausting to be a female leader in an all-male environment, even though I loved working in that world. I did that for many years, and in the end I just did not recognize anymore what kind of team it was I was in. So I just felt comfortable, and I still feel comfortable in a very technical environment, and I also like the technical discussions. But it was kind of exhausting because I work differently and I communicate differently. So for me it was important to learn how male leaders work and behave in the mechanical engineering world. So on the one hand side, you need to learn and also accept the way they do it to get into the game, to be able to play with them, because I also wanted to be part of the game. But then when you're in, you can start bringing your own style. And the more I did that, the more fun it was. And I won't stop anymore doing it on my own way. But it took me many, many years and a long time where I accepted and tried to be the same way and behave the same way they do. And that made me successful, yes. But I wouldn't say that it made me happy. So now I'm much more happy because I'm just myself in this environment, and I bring in my perspective and they like it. Yeah? So
two things. One, we have to overcome minority.
Yeah.
You have to be more than 30% to be heard. Yeah? And it's very difficult for a female being the one and only. And you most probably all experienced when you're sitting at a table, all male, just you, and you say, have a very good solution, and you speak about it, it's not heard. And 5 minutes later, a male is having the same remark, and everybody's saying, oh, great idea. And that is not because you are female, that's because you are the minority. And this is why this 30%, more than 30% is so important. That is one point. And another point, and that's my promotion block now. I have a podcast, and it's normally in German, but recently I made one in English. And that is about a female. She was CEO of a Swedish company, 23,000 people, and she became CEO as a male. And with 49, she decided to become female. And she said exactly the same thing. For a male, it's a lot less exhausting because you're just, every morning, you don't think about what are the clothes I wear, You don't think about your mood. You just go to the office and behave because you are in a system which is according to your rules. For females, every morning when you enter the office or even before, you're thinking about how do I speak? What kind of meeting do I have? How do I dress? How do I sit? Yeah, everything you're thinking about, and that alone is exhausting. And this is why a lot of females are saying, I cannot handle it anymore. Additionally, with a family, which most of the females are also taking care of. And she, at the end, Caroline, said she changed even her leadership style. When she entered as a male, as a CEO, she was entering a meeting saying, I have a brilliant solution. I think we should do this way. And then there were two males saying, wonderful boss, great idea. And then he, at that time, said, any other opinion at the table? No? Oh, wow, we have an efficient meeting, fast, solution, great. But not the right solution, of course. And now she consciously, because she feels the different role as a female, is looking for diverse teams and a diverse opinion. And that was fascinating to me to hear that from that person. It was really fascinating. And it's proving everything you're saying.
Well, sorry, I just have to react to this because actually now the difference is many years ago I would have thought, okay, how do I sit to look good? And now I want to sit comfortably. I want to relax while I sit here. So that's the difference, and I think that's it's a small story, but it's very, very important. What makes me feel comfortable? And then I go. So then I can go out. And then there's a second thing I want to react to because I love your podcast, and I thought, okay, I have to write many different books to one day be maybe part of her podcast. So we'll see. So now I'm writing my book. So dear Simone.
I got it.
But thank you for that. But and actually, I did a lot of research on leadership and how different kinds of leadership work and why they are important. And I brought it down to two different ways of leadership, but maybe we dive deeper into that topic, or just as you...
I think we'd love to hear that.
Okay, so what's ambidextrous leadership? So first of all, who's left-handed in the room? Any left-handed people? Okay, some. Okay, who's right-handed? Okay. Somebody ambidextrous?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Me too, yeah.
So actually, maybe some of you still, I'm a left-handed person, but somebody, when I was young, forced me to use the right hand. So now I'm actually ambidextrous, and it's a lot of fun when you're in meetings and then you write with both hands. So everybody is like, what is she doing? She must be a very creative person. But that's not the story. You also have ambidextrous companies. The story is about companies, and there's a research research area which is called ambidextrous leadership, ambidexterity, organizational ambidexterity. In business administration, you do that kind of research. And I wrote my PhD on this topic, and it's about companies who are able to improve and boost their core business, and at the same time, not in a sequence, but at the same time, establish a new business. And when you look at the many different industrial firms we see at the moment, but it's not only for industry companies, so it's also for different sectors. They have their core business still running and earning the money and paying the wages. And at the same time, they need to establish new solutions for a future of all of us, new sustainable solutions. For a long time, it was digital solutions. Now it's sustainable solutions. We have a sustainability transformation, not a digital transformation anymore. And the most important point about ambidexterity is not now we are here and in the future we are there and then we invest into the new business, but it is about how to get there. And the period of transition takes not only 2 weeks or 1 year, but it can take 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It can be a very long period of time. And now, how do you work in that time? How do you lead in this time? And this is what I focused on. How is leadership changing, and how do you have to lead in these two different worlds, which is also two different paradigms most of the time. When you have a traditional hardware company, for example, entering into the digital and sustainable new business, here you have traditional processes, hierarchy, top-down approaches, and here you have leadership, which has to bring the new or lead us into the future, open up new opportunities. It's a completely different way of working, and there you need creativity, you need many different perspectives, you also need the female, the male, the local, global, young, old. You need diverse perspective on innovation. And this is what ambidextrous leadership is all about. How do you do that now? And that's written in the book. So now, here we go.
But I have to say it's quite difficult. Again, look at the automotive industry. Rational, they know that they should think about mobility. And they actually work together. So there was a Mercedes and BMW mobility concept with Share Now. And they also bought a map concept, like Google Map, to share it. And they sold everything. They were not successful. They needed it, but they were not successful because the old culture was too strong. And again, we had the same, as mentioned, I had in Lufthansa as well as in Boehringer Ingelheim, we created a digital lab. And the ideas there were not accepted in the old culture. And the Lufthansa lab was even in Berlin. So everybody in Frankfurt said, okay, these young people in Berlin, they are crazy anyhow, that will never work. And so in Boehringer, we said we put them on the same site, location. And we started with pitching creative ideas. And then it developed into, we need a rehearsal before we go to the board. Oh. And then we need 2 rehearsals. And then you don't have a disruptive idea anymore, yeah? It was washed clean so that it fits. And that is the one problem. Another problem is investors. Because investors are saying, I want to have high margin and dividend. And high margin and dividend, again, automotive, is SUVs at the moment. They are earning their money with SUVs. And actually, BMW was quite early with an i3, but there were no customers and a very low margin. And so they said, well, obviously that is not successful. And that is a little bit innovator's dilemma. As a CFO, when a young person being at Lufthansa comes to me and says, I have a very creative new idea, and that's called beaming. And it works for fleas at the moment, and sometimes the flea does not come out at the same way he enters. But sooner or later, in 10 years' time, there will be no planes anymore. We do beaming. Well, me as a CFO will say, no way that I spent millions on that. Yeah. So you need startups to do that, creative ones, and obviously a lot of startups fail because beaming will not work. But that's another point where the difficulty in a big company lies when you talk about disruptive innovation. So culture and money. Yeah.
And you've both talked about creativity, which I think is amazing because that's a very big word. Yes. And it's one that we use a lot, but I think sometimes we don't really get in deep and we don't often see really creative spaces. We don't really see it coming through in our more science-based settings. I did a project a couple of years ago which brought together scientists and artists to think about a particular topic. The topic was picturing the invisible. We asked people to consider picturing the invisible from their science background and from their artistic expertise. The amazing thing that happened there was that the scientists realised that their science was only very good when they were incorporating artistic approaches, and artists were able to demonstrate that actually that the amount of science in their art was very significant. And the amazing thing that really came out of that was then all the projects that sparked off this series of conversations that we had. And so I'm just sort of wondering, because you own a gallery, and so you have this artistic part of your portfolio as well. What is it about creativity that is so elusive in our more scientific industrial settings, and how can we get more of it?
Yeah, that's interesting, and I always say that of course art helps you to think ambidextrous or ambivalent, or looking things from different angles. And on the 28th, I'm opening an exhibition of a female artist who for 1 year took her pulse and does 12 big rolls of paper, sheets of paper, eschewing her pulse with colors. And we see now from 12 months her feelings coming out of her pulse. And that is something, for me, incredible. How do you come to that idea? And how, this is the pulse, and she did similar things with noise. And of course, I could imagine that somebody working on health, on pharmaceuticals, thinking, that gives me a total different idea of a pulse. And what can a pulse do regarding measures, regarding feelings, whatever. And when you mix that, yeah, then the scientist can become more creative because he or she gets a totally different view or a totally different idea, which the artist cannot have because she doesn't have the scientific background. So I think it's very important. It's so important not to work in silos, but to bring people together.
And I think we started yesterday thinking about Londa Scheibinger's work around, we need to, particularly from a gendered research perspective, on fixing the numbers of women in the science area, but also fixing the institutions. Yeah. So creating the spaces for that to be possible and to enable that diversity. And I guess it's a similar thing here, isn't it, with that creativity? It's creating opportunities for us to engage with those that have different lenses on a similar situation.
I was fostering the idea of an artist in resident. Yeah, so that a company shall have one artist there for a year, talking with the people and talking about the product and thinking about her ideas of what could the product also be like, or what could people think or see in it. Because to get that exchange, but you need time. Yeah, you have to give your employees the time, and for a long time. And I think COVID and maybe other developments in the world changed that. Sustainability is also one of it. We didn't take the time. We wanted to optimize everything, and we need time to be creative, and we need to have time for different people, different ideas. To foster that, yeah.
You know, while I'm listening, I just thought, okay, that would be the idea of bringing a person with a different perspective into a corporate environment, for example. And then there would be the second point, or the second thing that we all could do. How can you foster creativity within yourself, and not in a very important project, but every day? And this is what I always try to bring in my personal daily life. And there are two important sentences. One was from one member of the management board in one company that I worked for many years ago. He always said to us, do one thing differently every day. Mm-hmm. Just one single day. You all know that sentence, and we all know it, but still you forget it, and I forget it. But I try to remember that. Just a very small thing, do it in a different way. That's the one sentence that I like. And the other one is from Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, do one thing every day that scares you. And I love that sentence. That's my personal motto. I really love it, because you do just one thing. Yeah, raising your arm and say, here I am, and I'm here too in the innovation team, for example. When you're the only female person in the innovation team, you raise your arm and say, here I am, or you just talk to a stranger, or whatever you can imagine. But it doesn't have to be something very big to be creative. You can just incorporate it into your daily life. And so this is what I try to do every day, again and again. So it's creativity from a personal point of view.
And we were talking about chaos theory in our last panel. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that will, if we start at home, don't we? And then it ripples out, which is the power of that.
Definitely.
Small steps. I'm just so fascinated. There's so many different things that are going around in my mind at the moment in terms of the way that you've both brought such interesting topics to the table. I guess one of the things that I'm really curious about is, given what the people you're working with and what you see weekly, monthly, what is it that excites you? Because we've talked about some of the challenges, but what is it that's exciting you as you look forward in terms of how are we going to get to a point where there is more creativity instilled in the way that we innovate? And how are we going to get to the point of having these more diverse teams that will help us get there? That's a big question, I know, but...
I have it might be a very simple answer now, but what excites me is when I meet people who just feel comfortable, because you can feel it and it makes you feel comfortable as well. And the moment you feel comfortable, you start getting creative, because then I feel like I can be what I am, behave like I am, and then I just start talking. And this is actually what I also do when I'm in recruiting situations, when I try to talk to people who might be interested in working with me or with us. I would never scare them. I would always try to make people feel comfortable, because then it's you get to know the person that sitting next to you or in front of you, and that fosters creativity, I think. When you feel comfortable, there might be another perspective when you're very much under pressure. There might come ideas that you haven't thought of before, but that's another situation then. So what really impresses me when I meet people where you feel that they do not try to pretend to be something, but that they are just there. That's a very simple thing, but it's at the same time not simple to achieve. It takes a whole life. So that's what's impressive.
What excites me is of course when people are successful and say, okay, yeah, you were an enabler and you made us successful. Yesterday evening I was at a startup event with awards for startups, and of course they were all excited, and so excited about their business, and it was a lot about sustainability and empowering and different ways of doing things, and that is really exciting when you find out, okay, it works, and people are saying thank you, you helped us, you enabled us to do that. That is exciting.
So both of those are actually quite grassroots parts of this, aren't they? I'm going to really push you. Is there anything that's sort of top down that can get us to a point where we're changing the mindsets in those boardrooms? And
I think it's leadership. It's leadership. And when you described the situations in the industry companies earlier, I thought we always forget to talk with the managers in these companies, with the leaders. They get trainings, certain trainings. They get digital transformation trainings, and now they probably all get sustainability transformation trainings. But I think that's very, very important to invest in leadership, because it's so much different to lead into the future. And you can avoid innovation, or you can enable innovation by the way you lead people and give guidance and empower people. And I think this is a very important topic, to invest in leadership and to help leaders also to change, because it's also very tough when you have learned being a leader or a top-down manager with a in a hierarchy, when you've learned that for 10, 20 years, for example. how can you change that within 1 year? It's impossible. It's inside of you. So you also need training and guidance to be able to adjust to that new kind of leadership. And sometimes you need both ways, because when we are, for example, in a crisis situation, then we need very strong leaders with a top-down approach and very clear management sometimes. And at the same time, you might need like very creative groups. So you need both. But it really depends on the situation. But yeah, I would invest in leadership a lot.
And from what you're saying, it's the mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that critical thinking, the willingness to engage with other ideas.
Empower people, because that's the potential that we have, and then we can be better than our competition when we invest in the people. And that's the fun part also about my job. This is the part that I love, working with people and making them be creative and find new ways to handle a situation. So.
Well, the answer is not so much different for the boardrooms. And again, I give you a practical example. I'm in the board of Johnson Controls International, and there was a merger with Tyco and Johnson Controls, so two cultures coming together. And of course, a huge transformation and cultural clash also for some period of time. You clearly could say that is a Tyco person and that's a Johnson Controls person. And there was who can become the CEO, and also in the board there was even a clash of cultures. So the transformation of Johnson Controls into one company. Second transformation, we as a board work very much on diversity. And again, also on gender, as well as we also need people with a totally different background. We need people of color. So that is a transformation we are doing. And the third transformation, they do buildings, so air conditioning, heating, light, fire security, these kind of things, huge buildings like airports or hospitals. And the transformation is to become not only digital, you're right, but also sustainable with smart buildings. And COVID helped a lot because they are working in hospitals and schools and they need purified air, but they also need to do maintenance, not being there physically. They need to connect all their different machines and instruments. And these are three types of transformation. And as a board, it is exciting to be part of it and see the progress. And they are now at the moment tremendously successful because they got this right timing with COVID and smart buildings now, where others were not as far yet. They worked traditionally. So, and that is exciting to see that transformation and to see that it works when you look for the right people. And interesting enough, I'm not fully with you with you need a strong leader in crisis. We have too many strong leaders. People tend to look for a strong leader with a clear opinion and say, this is the way we go because we are in a crisis. And you have the same dangerous things like you have in normal business, because this person may see the totally wrong way. Imagine Trump being there at the moment and saying we go for war with Russia because we will win anyhow. He, obviously, strong leader, saying the clear direction. And Biden saying, no, we have to be careful. Or also, I appreciate our chancellor, despite the fact that the whole media is saying, he should be more clear and outspoken, and already on the third day should have said, we bring tanks to Ukraine. I don't think that is a good idea in crisis. Yeah. I think it's good to think a little bit, and even if anybody excuses you or accuses you not to be smart enough or strong enough, take your time, consider, and then you are clear, and consider with your team. And I think this is what a clever leader does also in crisis. And Mrs. Merkel did during COVID. Look for experts surrounding you, and these experts should be from health, from psychologic, from criminal, from society, to really tell you, okay, diverse, we are in a crisis, and it is not the best way, like I gave you names, either Trump to say, I ignore it, or Xi to say, no COVID. I just put people in prison. They are strong leaders in crisis, but it doesn't work.
I think that's interesting, because when you talk about a strong leader, you bring in Trump and you bring these examples, and I absolutely agree with you on that part. And at the same time, I experienced, now how do I call it now, a very impressive leader during the COVID time when it started with the first lockdown in the company I worked in. And he made us all feel informed. And he, in daily meetings, he brought information to all of us, but he also listened a lot. So there was a kind of leadership, listening and then acting and making decisions, very clear and consequent decisions. And this is what I very much appreciate in times where you might be in a crisis situation. So it's not the kind of strong leadership that you just mentioned, but a very clear and decisive leadership. You listen. Right.
You always need that. Not only in crisis.
But still, for example, when you have an innovation team, I would lead differently as in a crisis. For example, when I'm leading in a crisis situation, I would make clear decisions once in a while when you need it. And when you have, for example, and this is the topic also of today, the innovation topic, when you try to bring a new idea to life, then I would hold myself back with my decisions and maybe don't say something sometimes, because I want the team to bring in the ideas. So that might be, just for my specific situation, different styles of leading. Situations where I'm more the sender, and then where I'm more the person to ask questions and lead in a way where I ask instead of giving answers. So this might be the difference.
Yeah, but I see, look at pharmaceutical. You constantly have innovation there. So in Boehringer Ingelheim, we had 6 therapeutic areas. That's very expensive. And all of them need 26 starting projects to come out at least with 1 drug at the end. So you constantly have to decide, with what do we continue, despite the fact that you need innovation.
Yeah.
And which one do you foster? Yeah. So I think, and there we totally agree, a good leader is a person who surrounds herself with diverse people, listen, but necessarily come to decisions, because you cannot just leave every innovation foster, because it's just too expensive. So you have to, from time to time, say, okay, I take the decision, we don't continue with this cancer drug or this Alzheimer drug or this whatever, because this seems to be more successful.
Right.
And that is the same in crisis and non-crisis.
I could talk about this now for hours.
I
love disagreeing. That's the fun part in the discussion, because I think there are different techniques in leadership then. Because when you need to make clear decisions, and let's say you have thousands of people, and you need them within 1 day or maybe 1 hour to all have the same information, then you just go through it. You need to have communication channels, information must be very clear, content must be very clear, and you need to bring everybody to the same status in a very short term. And there might be just a completely different situation. Let's imagine 10 people meeting at the Spielfeld, doing an innovation workshop. I would maybe just have the leader take a cup of coffee and stay outside once in a while, just to let the team be creative and be in a different mode. So it's a different, and that's the core of the research actually. It's how do you communicate in different leadership situations. It's on the one hand side, you have a very clear top-down communication. You're using information channels that are available, and the information and the content is very clear. You know exactly what you want to tell the world. And on the other hand side, you still do not know what's coming out. And then you want the team and by many different interactions to bring a new reality to the world. So that's a different way of communicating as a leader. So that's actually the core concept, and this is why I could talk for hours about the different leadership styles.
I could also answer, but I think we will.
I would just.
It'll be just too much.
I would love to open this up to the floor.
Yes, I think I need to.
Do you have a microphone?
I have a question indeed, because I do really appreciate this leadership thematics going on, and especially I really appreciate that you actually think that our chancellor, the way our chancellor acts right now in this political situation is good. And I think the critical coverage by media of his decisions has something to do with how we perceive strength. And this way is also a gendered thing. What means when we perceive strength and we think of a male person, we think of someone like Putin, like Trump, like Elon Musk. But when we think of a strong woman, we think of a person who really can, hold out a stressful situation, but don't really put on a table and say, basta, this way it goes. Different perceptions. My question to you is, what was your experience with that, with the strengths? Were you able in your career to perform both ways as a female leader? And what was these situations? Thank you.
Yeah, I think yes. So I remember that I once, when I was in a department head and I had 6 male direct reports, one was really questioning me as a person and in a position. And he was really, it was unusual for him. Normally he was a very friendly person, but he was just getting too excited. And then I really, and that's for the only time in my life, I put my fist on the table and say, that's basta. Stop that here, yeah? Because it was so getting the whole team into a very steamy, strange thing, and we were getting out of argument and getting into emotion, and that wasn't healthy. But in general, you are absolutely right, and there's science about it. When you look at, when you ask people and for a sentence, and you put a male or a female picture above that sentence, there's a totally different approach. And people are saying, Hillary Clinton, they did that a lot, yeah? That she could never have said what other candidates have said. And she went to a listening tour, not to a talking tour. We are socialized like that, and it's still dangerous to behave differently, because then everybody will say she's bossy, or neither female nor male like it. And this is why you partly have to behave, and that is, I think, what you also meant. We look for a thing in between. So what I do is, in meetings, I very clearly choose my seat. Thinking, okay, what is the seat at this table where you have power? At the top of the table, or what is the right seat here? And secondly, of course, also the body language. Yeah, very often female stand like this, say, well, I have an idea, and I think it could be great when we consider to do maybe that. And of course you have to do, I think that is a good idea, and I strongly believe, and we all should do that. And that is male body language and male talk, yeah? And strange enough, again, this Carolyn said the same thing. So I think I play both. Yeah, I did. And I think I had to, at least that's my idea. And I see female who do not play that game, let's put it like this, and you said it, I want to feel comfortable, and some may not feel comfortable with that, but the danger is that then you are not successful, or at least in my time when I made my career.
It's just important to know the rules and to be able to play them once in a while. And yeah, it depends on the situation, but let's make an assumption, maybe also a research topic might be interesting. Might be the more mature your leadership team is, the less you need a basta policy, a way of leadership, maybe. It depends, maybe you have some experiences on that as well, but the more able your leadership team is to discuss different options and opportunities, and might be not necessary to go like that, but it always depends on the situation. You can really.
It's very much depending on the team. So
we research topic then.
we have boards in Germany, at least I know, where you have a very male-centric culture. Yeah. And where you have an alpha male, and it's very clear that this is the alpha male, and everybody is laughing when he's making a joke, how bad this joke is, it's really like old male behavior, everything there at the table, and that is really an uncomfortable situation for females, and that is not depending at all if they are 40 or 60. They are socialized male who are socialized in that culture, and they do behave the same way her grandfathers did. That is, and I'm afraid when I hear about these family offices where you have a patriarch and where they have only 6% females, that this culture is in family-owned, small, medium-sized companies still that same. But one point, maybe to the point, Scholz, obviously, the problem of Scholz is not his decision-making, it's his communication. Yeah, and strange enough, and this is what the whole media and maybe whole Germany is at the moment wondering about, that a person who is called a philosopher, who is talking about the problems he has with the decisions and the dilemmata he has with his decisions, Robert Habeck, is very much loved by people, which is obviously the difference to what we expected to be a strong leader. Standing there and saying, of course I don't like to go to Qatar. Of course I don't like to buy gas now. Of course it's a dilemmata to deliver weapons. I don't like it, but the other way is even more difficult. And this is strong leadership.
Right.
Explaining why you are coming to a decision, and that this decision is not easy for you, but the other decision would be even worse. And that's the interesting leadership part we are now experiencing in Germany, which is new. And that is, for me, a strong leader. Yeah.
Absolutely. And also the good news is what I experienced during my daily professional life is that things are currently changing a lot. And the more things change, the more we all can bring in this female leadership style, and also the more we bring ourselves into the game, the more things change. So it's up to all of us to design and shape this reality in companies. So I just want to motivate everyone to be part of that, because it's to be honest, it's also it's fun to be part of the game and to be in and to bring yourself in the discussion. So
I think it's a great insight, isn't it? As things are getting more complex, as we know more, as decisions aren't clear, it's not only the decision, it's how we communicate it, and being authentic, I guess. Authentic leadership, I guess, is one of the really key things that we're seeing emerge as being really, really important, because people know when they're being fobbed off or when things aren't transparent. So so we've talked about storytelling a lot over the last 2 days. Yeah. There's something very, very powerful about being able to explain that there is complexity, that there is uncertainty, and yet in that mix, with experience, these are the decisions on the table to be made. And and the point at which you have to come down and make one of those, which I guess is something that has come much more to the fore in the last 2 years, that the uncertainty and the thresholds that people have for feeling comfortable or not, and being critical or supportive. I guess that's...
Oh, there is another question. No, the interesting part, of course, being part of it, and what we read a lot now is in negotiations, especially when we talk about war or freedom, but also in others, negotiations are more sustainable, or the result of a negotiation, when you have a female part in it. And another interesting part is there are, I think, 5 female leaders at the moment in the world who are thinking about a well-being alliance. So they are not measuring the result of a country by the BIP, but by the well-being of the society, being health, education, health I mentioned already, of course how good the people feel, and this is Scotland, Iceland, Finland, I'm not sure if Taiwan, Indonesia, yeah. New Zealand, true, yes, yeah. And maybe Taiwan, I'm not sure. And I asked Annalena Baerbock if she would be part of it, would she had become chancellor? And I think she would have, yeah. Because we do have to measure different things, and females are measuring different things.
And valuing different things.
This is why it's so important, not only in the company to be part of it, but also in politics to be part of it. Because, again, we have now at least in Germany 30% females in the Bundestag. That's not too bad, but it should be 50. Yeah.
Okay, I have a microphone, so I will speak first. So I want to slightly move away from the leadership question and more into how we're thinking about innovation. We are moving as societies into zero carbon societies. Mm-hmm. So the disruptive innovation has got no place in it, because it requires technological innovation, requires a huge change in societal behavior. Mm-hmm. So it requires also societal innovation. Yes. So we need. And I think the multinational corporation probably have an advantage here, because they're already diverse in the different parts of the world. So there is this concept of open innovation. It's not just companies and universities, but also you have a triple helix, quadruple helix, quintuple helix, and so on. So you can bring different interests into actually deciding what the innovation should be about. So I think that's really what should be used in order to achieve the zero carbon objective. And how to achieve the diversity is not just in the team. There's a website called innovation.com where people can sign up as problem solvers. Harvard University analyzed, I think, 1,200 problems. Okay, these problems are placed by companies that basically don't have an idea what to do. And anybody can suggest a solution. And they discovered 2 things. One thing is that the best solutions were created in 2 ways. One is by people who were outside the silo. Okay? The other one, it was actually the best solution were proposed by women. Okay. So if you look at the pattern of careers of women in academia, by the time you come to kind of assistant professor, it's men succeeded, women drop out. So where are they? I mean, they obviously are in society. They are all perfectly trained and so on. So they are there a source of innovative ideas. And I think corporation could use this really to kind of pool ideas in different countries and says how you see and achieve zero carbon world in your circumstances. Yes, so there are those techniques to do it, and I think maybe you could promote it through your blog.
I'm happy to do that. I think what a lot of companies do already, and partly also female, is hackathons, to find a similar way to just say, recently Henkel, for example, where I'm in the supervisory board, did it. and they pose questions, like you said, and then they have a hackathon and they ask females how to solve it. And Henkel, obviously, there are a lot of female things to do, and for Henkel, the carbon neutral solutions very often take place in the household at the end. How do you use the washing powder? How do you use a shampoo? Do you take a plastic bottle or do you take a dry shampoo? These kind of things, yeah. And there, females are just a bright source because they use it every day. And I totally agree. Same thing. A development of a car, an open source. Normally in German car companies, it takes 7 years. When you do it open source, it's 1 year. Yeah, and you have just people who are motivated, who have fun, and they take part of it, and it's driving, and it's safe. Yeah, it's not that they forgot anything. So getting these kind of sources is, you are absolutely right, is so important. Because we are tapping people, and normal people like to find solutions. A human being is made to find solutions. This is why we survived, and getting that source, it's absolutely important, and that's a good suggestion. Thank you.
I'd like to add something. I very much like your question and that you connect closed and open innovation to the topic of sustainability. What I experienced during the last years and last months was that in the corporate research environment, it's easier to open up and to have open innovation because we are very used to working with research organizations, companies and research organizations collaborate in huge projects. So here is a certain, we have routines and processes already in the industry to collaborate and to open up. When it comes to the core product development process, I experienced that it's not that easy anymore to have that kind of open innovation because then you're in your process, and of course there are open source activities coming up more and more at the moment in the software environment especially, but still it's very hard to open up. It's even hard to open up the internal silos, to break the internal silos, and then let's imagine to break the corporate silo and work with other companies in one innovation. And that's one of the very important topics at the moment in product development environments, in innovation environments, to open up. And this is not just a matter of partnering with a different company or research organization. It's also a technical approach. You have to have an open architecture of your products, of your systems. And when you do not have that open architecture, it's very hard to connect components from the outside. So you have to open up with your company, with your silos, with your organization, with your business model, and with your technology and architecture. So it's a very huge field of action for companies at the moment. So I very much agree with your statement that it's important to open up because then we achieve innovation. I don't believe in closed innovation anymore. Maybe in some areas, of course, but with the big topics at the moment, we need to collaborate, and collaboration is the key to innovation. Absolutely. So thank you for your statement.
My vision was always, but there is of course a big lobby in between that vision and reality, that you do research up to stage 1 for drugs, absolutely open. And you use artificial intelligence to then combine protein with molecule and find out what is a most probable suggestion for a drug. And then there is a bidding for stage 2 and 3. And only then the pharmaceutical companies come into the game. And for the rest, it will be open. I think that should be a big progress in drug. But of course, pharmaceutical companies will never agree to that. And one more point where the difficulty is. I've been with Lufthansa, and at that time, out of my budget, finance manager or CFO, we took money for a project which is sustainable fuel, because it will be very difficult for aircraft to fly on battery or on solar. Whatever you read, it's small planes. So we invested in sustainable fuel. My successor did not continue with that project. There is the former CEO of Lufthansa, myself, the former CEO of Austrian, the former CFO of Swiss, the former CEO from Lufthansa Cargo. We are all privately invested. And it's very difficult to find any big investor, because you have either companies like automotive who are saying, well, we buy the engine, we build the engine, somebody else has to produce whatever comes into that engine. You have big energy companies who are saying, either we do it on our own or we try to sell the fossil fuel we still have. And if you talk like DHL, which has a big fleet, they say, we will buy it, or aircraft, or Lufthansa, we will buy it. And I say, it will not be there because nobody is producing it and we need it in 5 years. So you better invest in your own energy. And there you come to the innovator's dilemma. That makes me crazy, because we need these kind of solutions, and it does not have to be our patent, but it has to be any that people are producing to get carbon neutral. And at the moment, the big companies are still saying, well, we are waiting for somebody else, or we're waiting for policy. There is not enough initiative, really, to work on carbon neutrality. And that is really something I'm fighting for when I'm sitting in the board. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Jessica. I'm a researcher in academia at the Charité here in Berlin. And I just wanted to thank you. Really a lot of inspirational thoughts coming into my mind, and maybe to connect to some of the past sessions. So you've talked a lot about understanding the rules to navigate rigid structures, both within smaller companies, even startups, into bigger, societal structures, and using the knowledge of those rules to get a seat at the table, and then maybe it's the only seat. And then trying to balance that attitude and mentality with being a disruptor and bringing new ideas to the table, actually doing innovation and shaking things up and cutting through the mess that's not really getting things done. I'm wondering, as three success stories here on the stage, how you've manage that balance to both be a part of the system that exists and contribute to it in some way, to continue to be at the table and not get kicked out, but then also bring your voice and your ideas and get those acknowledged by those rigid structures. Do you have any advice for us sitting in those positions here today?
Look for male alliances. Yeah. It's a lot talk about networking, and a lot of female are thinking about female networking. Networking is everything. Yeah, networking is in your company, and of course also with other companies. So when you have a plan to have a disruptive idea at an important meeting, talk to others at the table up front, and when you bring up the idea, immediately somebody else, hopefully you find an important alliance, will say, that is a brilliant idea. Then you get out that it's not heard. And very often there are a lot of males who also think they cannot open their mouth. They are in similar positions. It's not that all male are very comfortable and thinking, okay, I'm a male here at the table. A lot of them also think, can I dare to open my mouth with a disruptive idea? So if you look for these kind of alliances, and another way is, if you can look for, in Germany it's called Hausmacht. So if you have a strong network and your team and the employees think she is great, and we strongly support her, that also helps, because then that is known in the company. So to build up that and not being a singular with whatever, this would be my 2 advices.
I love the answer. I love the question. I love the answers. First of all, thanks for that. My spontaneous reaction was relax. Okay, and now, thank you for mentioning that it's not a female-only problem. As I worked with many male colleagues during the last couple of years, I experienced that so many people were relieved to have a new kind of leadership style. And it's male, female. It's maybe talking about extrovert, introvert, maybe belonging to minority, majority, what you mentioned in the beginning. So it helps everybody in the room. So do not focus on female topics only in these situations. And then really, once again, relax, because things are also changing a lot at the moment. And during the last weeks, I'm in so many wonderful situations with people from all over the world, male, female, young, old. Things are changing a lot at the moment. So be part of it. Bring yourself in with your ideas and follow your way. I think the most important thing in life is just to find your specific individual way, because you're the only one who can live that life. So do it, and don't try to be. I spent so many years trying to be like somebody I want to maybe follow or belong to. Doesn't make sense. But I'm very happy for this experience. But now I find out for myself, just follow your way and relax. And not relaxation in the sense of don't say anything anymore and just relax. And when I talk about feeling comfortable, I don't mean I want to feel always comfortable and have a coffee and everything is fine. No, this is not what I'm talking about. I love being in situations that scare me. That's my comfort zone, actually. But still, try to just feel yourself. Bring yourself to the party, and not some person you do not know. Bring yourself to the party. That's the fun part of life. And then you will master all the difficult situations, I guess. So this is now philosophy and Julia science, but still, I love that science.
I think, I was really struck a number of years ago when someone sort of mentioned to me, who was in a more senior position, that senior leaders only know what you're doing if you tell them. Mm-hmm. And so I've taken risks and let people know something that's happened or something that I'm doing, something that I'm really excited about. And so far, it's always, sometimes it just goes into the ether, never hear back. Other times, it just helps people understand what you're about, what you care about, what you're passionate about, what you're actually making happen in the space that you are. So I think that would be something that, and when you do it in a way that is you, not someone else, that authenticity does come through, and it's really infectious. People love being around people who love what they do and are passionate about what they do and are on it. So that would be my point.
I have a question. I'll keep it short. It's about COVID. Do you think that COVID has been an inflection point for leadership styles? So I'm just, my thinking around this, it's about that these traditional authoritarian, strong leadership styles really showed cracks during the pandemic, and more feminine, maybe let's call it inclusive leadership styles really seemed to be much more effective. And I have to think about how Elsevier's CEO, Kumsal Bayazit, handled it. It was really amazing. She used empathy, and she used empathy just about every day. And I thought, it's amazing how she's been able to do this over the course of 2 years. Because first, she gave us additional free days because of the sheer fatigue. She talked about people who had families with young children, how hard that was for the parents to manage it all. The next time she'd talk about people who were on their own and how lonely they were and what a burden it was. Then she would talk about another situation, and she herself was a mother of young children. And it just seemed to really change the dialogue and make it also okay to be flexible. So there was never any of this, you need to come to work which is much more of a kind of, strong leadership style of you need to come as of September 1st. It was really, let's find something that works for all of you, for your teams. And it just seemed to bring out the best in people, and we had some of the most productive years ever because of this approach. So I was curious, from your perspectives, if you think that COVID has been a real game changer in terms of leadership.
I don't think so. Actually, there are studies who say it's a backlash to women. You saw more male because partly topics which were former at the CHRO, which were often a female, became a CEO topic. So there were more male CEOs be seen to talk about it. I met CEOs being proud, having never been in home office. I was in the office every day, Miss Menne. Yeah. So I think, and you were fortunate. Of course, if you have the right leader, then you get better results. But there were also leaders just saying we have to be strong, and I want to be everybody back in the office now. And so I don't think that we can generalize it, unfortunately.
I published a very small piece of research on leadership during the 6 weeks of the first lockdown in Germany. It's also part of the book, chapter 6. And that was, I hadn't planned this. I could talk to 6 different leaders in 6 different kinds of companies. Private insurance company, consulting company, automotive supplier company, so really different perspectives. And they accompanied me during my lockdown experience with these 6 interviews. And it was very interesting to find out how leadership was during that COVID lockdown, the first lockdown in Germany. And it was really a brilliant example of ambidextrous leadership, because what you just said is bringing in this empathy. It's just one part of the game. You have this very empathetic style of leadership because you have to take care of the people and of your own situation, of course. But on the other hand, you have to give clear guidance in those times. And it was a time full of tensions. This is what the interviewees told me. And so that was really moving between the worlds all the time. So that was very, very interesting to do research on this. And I also could find out that this ambidextrous way of leading brings in this, strengthens resilience of people, because you have those stable approaches and then you have very flexible approaches. And it was really interesting, but it was just the first piece, and there needs to be more research on this topic. And there's one colleague of yours coming from an African university, she dives deeper into this connection between ambidextrous leadership and resiliency. So that's really a research topic, and would be interested if somebody is into that.
We've got one last question.
Okay, it's more of a comment than a question, as people will say. But Simone, you said something that kept me thinking during all this time, that if you have a group and you have less than 30%, for example, of women, then you probably won't be heard, you will still be a minority. But then I thought, even if there is still 30% of women, but in my position, all of the women are white and are European, I, as a Hispanic, I will still feel very alone and very unheard. So I think when we talk about diversity, we should not only just focus, or I think that is probably the main thing that people think, just women, right? But it's also all these different backgrounds and intersectionality. I think that's the word. But I just think about industries and how the recruitment process works. So I know, for example, in Europe, many companies, they have to justify why you're going to take a person coming from a different country that probably has all the skills, right? But they have to sponsorship a visa and all the obligations and costs that come with it, right? So you first have, for example, I live in Switzerland, so you first have to justify why you have to take a Swiss, otherwise a European, and then in the last step. And this is also embedded, that's the word, in the national policy, right? There are quotas of how many international people you can actually, hire in a canton, for example. I'm just thinking about the Swiss perspective. Then when industries talk about diversity, what do they really mean by diversity, or what are they doing? Because I always feel like I have to prove 100% more, 200% more of why I am worth. And just because I am a national of another country, like whatever work that I have is not like even considered. So I think like, okay, these companies care about diversity, but like I don't think really, or at least they are not so willing as to sponsor like these other backgrounds and these other international people. So I don't know if this is a question, but like maybe what are your takes on that? Yeah.
Well, first, you are absolutely right. So when you talk about an all-male team and there's one person, people of color or a different background, the minority rule is the same. This is why I'm saying it's not a female issue, it's a minority issue. Yeah. Second, the old rules coming very much from a unionized environment where the union said, we don't want to have unemployment in our country, and therefore you first have to look for the German and Swiss and whatever. Third, Switzerland and Germany are not, for a long time, did not label themselves as countries of migration, which is absolutely stupid. Germany, for years and years and years, was a country of migration, but it's still only 5 years ago that somebody said, okay, yes. And it may change because we have now such a need for good educated people. And I don't know if they change the laws. And the last item, companies are saying they want to have women and are saying they want to be diverse, but in their culture they don't really want it. So when I was hired by Boehringer, they wanted to have a female from a different culture to change a little bit the way they act. And rational, it was absolutely fine. Emotional, it didn't work. Yeah, emotional, the CIO, CEO and myself, it couldn't work. So one thing is to say we need diversity. Another thing, as we mentioned, is the culture. And to change the culture, as we heard, takes a lot more. So if a company really wants to be diverse, they look for solutions. And then they may look for solutions in a different country and bring international teams together. So then they hire in South America and say, yeah, fine, we have people from South America, so they come here for 3 months. That is how we add diversity if we cannot overcome the legal laws or the legal rules. But a lot of companies like to take that as an excuse. And that's a problem. They really have to embrace diversity and not only label diversity. Yeah.
And hopefully, when there are people who do actually take a risk and do that, they'll be the ones coming out on top, and then the others will follow.
Yeah.
It takes somebody to break ranks, doesn't it? And to do that. I'm really sorry, I'm afraid we are out of time. I can see that this, so I hope you're able to stay for lunch and continue these conversations. I'm just mindful that we're at the end of quite an extraordinary journey over the last 2 days. And this phrase just has kept coming to me, so I'm just going to share it with you now as we close. So I heard recently this wonderful phrase, which, forgive me if I don't remember it completely correctly, but it goes along this sort of line, that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those that can't read and write. It will be those that can't learn, relearn and unlearn. And I think that is something that we have seen time and time again in different guises as we've been talking about these incredibly important issues, and something that I think inspires us to be those people who are continuing to ask questions, to be critical, to offer solutions, and to ultimately, have that grit that keeps us going. We've seen so many inspirational people on this stage who have seen a need and done the course and are changing the world. So I put that out to you. Thank you for being here, and I'm so excited to see how you're going to change the future. Thank you.